Starting with the our standard tray cable, we have two versions. We have a black and a gray, and for those of whom are familiar with lap, the black would be equal to a Tray Flex 190, a Tray Flex 2, and the gray would be comparable to the 190. There's a shielded version plus VFD cables. So for the factory automation in the shielded and both non-shielded, they both have a K-strand. The non-shielded version comes in an 18 gauge to 2 gauge. The 8, 6, 4, and 2 are all only available in a 3 and 4 conductor. 10 is up to, I think, 12 conductor, and everything else is available up to a 25 conductor. K-strand flexible, though to be noted, not to be used in a flex application. It's just flexible for ease of installation into a tray. But once it's been installed, it's to be left alone. TP jacket, and the TP jacket is it's pretty durable for everything. It has a fairly high tolerance to almost everything but nuclear radiation. So, and if you're a nuclear, that's a whole other world. Next is the our reduced diameter VFD. This is a relatively new VFD cable that's come out to the market. It is comparable to what one would know as the lap slim. And the biggest difference between it and standard VFD cable is just the overall diameter has been slightly reduced. Next is the signal pair VFD cable, typically used in applications where you need to get a signal from your PLC down out to your motor or out to the VFD, or from VFD back to controller. And I guess I should qualify VFD being variable frequency drives. They're used to control the speed of motors. Next is just the standard diameter VFD cable. Again, same form, fit, and function, just has a bit of a larger diameter, and it was sort of the original cable that came out to market. The termination kit with VFD cable, if you don't terminate at the motor end and at the panel end, the cable serves no purpose. So this is something that needs to be taken into account when you're selling a VFD cable, that it should be properly terminated at both ends. So the termination kit that you see on the screen is used at the motor end. And what happens is the copper braid gets held down with a spring to the shielding of the VFD cable. And then the copper braid is terminated into the ground lug, and that will dissipate any noise out of the cable and run it into the ground. Next is the shielded ground connector. This ground connector, or the shielded connector, is used on the panel end, and it has the exact same function as the braided shield, or the braided shield connector, except it goes into the panel end. And again, it completes the system. So this will allow grounding, any of the noise to be grounded into your panel. And then you'll have any noise that's generated towards the other side of the cable, or flow of the cable will be routed to ground through the motor ground. Typical target markets would be your machine builders, packaging OEMs, material handling, food and beverage, pharmaceutical OEMs, greenhouses, industrial contractors, and industrial end user MROs. Those pretty much encompasses everybody, and any large contractor that does a lot of industrial installation. Like there are some contractors that may specialize in, say, material handling, installation, or conveyors. Those would be targets as well. Typical applications for the cable: safety gate switches, palm operators, remote push button stations, process measuring equipment, so anything that's measuring flow or pressure, and that typically uses shielded cable. Process control, same thing, and typically uses shielded cable. And the purpose for the shielding is to keep any noise away from the process equipment, because the process equipment input and outputs are generally very sensitive to minute amounts of milliamp or millivolt, depending on which signal type is being used. So that shielding helps keep any of that noise away from your controllers. Between control panel and machine, between control panel and junction boxes, connecting modular equipment, using a rectangular connector like the Weedmuller Rockstar or the Harding style connector. Light assembly stations and industrial chillers. And I will say industrial chillers is going to be more of a target for the VFD cable, because typically there will be a multiple amount of smaller fans out in the chiller, and they will use VFDs to turn off and on each of the fans depending on the temperature demands, whatever is being cooled, and hence that ties back into the process measurement and process control. The other product that I'd like to speak to you about was what we call our machine flexible power. It's a brand new product out to the market, and it's a high flex RW90, and it is tray rated FT4, and its applications are for really tight terminations and tough bends. So I know you guys don't have a sample of this in front of you, but picture something like a cab tire and how soft and supple a cab tire is. Well, a 750 MCM RW90 is that soft and supple as, say, a 10.4 SOOW. It's really easy to work with, very easy to terminate, and where you look for the opportunities for this stuff is when you have a customer that is lamenting on how tight of a pull or how tight of a termination they have. And in some applications, they may use a DLO. And the advantage to this stuff over the DLO is that the machine flexible power has a much lower coefficient of friction. So it's much easier to install than a traditional DLO. And then it's much more flexible than a traditional RW90. So it gives you advantages on both sides of the installation. And we're stocking, Southwire is stocking 350, 500, 650, and 750 MCM in black in the US. And this cable here is a little bit more application specific. So if there's something you may feel you have a need for, please reach out to your NCS rep, and they can contact me, and I can go through the application with you to make sure that it's the appropriate cable. It is a bit more of an expensive cable. There is definitely a premium on it, but it is a labor saver, and it has some potential health attributes to it where you're not struggling and straining to do your terminations. So there's a pile of potential, or there's a pile of advantages to the cable. And if you're interested in more product detail, again, please reach out to your NCS sales rep, and I will gladly forward on any information that I have available. This is the Southwire Industrial website. If you ever have a requirement for spec sheets, everything that you need to know, or all the spec sheets, are available on this website. And this website has a US page and a Canadian page. And on the Canadian page, only CSA product comes up. So you don't have to go searching to make sure that what you're looking at is indeed for the Canadian market. And again, if you can't find the spec sheet that you're looking for, please reach out to your NCS sales rep. They will contact me, and I will provide them with all the information that is required.